So welcome to Bridging the Gap. I found that it's very rare to find a client CMO who has also run a world-class agency. And today we're fortunate because we have 3 of these unicorns of our industries here with us. They're going to share their very unique perspective on what they really think the secret to a long-term client-agency relationship is. Universally, clients say they feel uncomfortable with the way the majority of their agencies approach them. This is not just new agencies who are angling for a project or a place on the roster or the next pitch list, but this includes even their existing agencies who often come to them cap in hand, asking for a brief or more money. What do you know now about being a client that you really didn't know before you went client side?
How important the business people are inside a business, and that sounds really silly, but one of the things I discovered is that your best friend as the head of marketing needs to be the finance director.
Wise words.
And they are the ones often hardest to convince of the value of the money that they give you.
What's it like on the client side? And I found myself saying, it isn't a side.
Yeah.
It's not a side any more than your tongue is one side of your body and the rest of your body is the other side.
Jules, if I knew 10 years ago what I know now, I would have been such a better agency CEO. So what was it that you learned that you thought you'd apply back to that?
We didn't really have a broad enough conversation with our clients. If I was running an agency now, I think I'd want to be making sure that I was able to have, and some of the people who were working with the client directly, a much more sophisticated business conversation rather than a communications conversation.
Yeah.
Because the communications is one of the tools to solve the business problem, but it's not the only tool.
Agencies shoot themselves in the foot when they say, we want a really well-defined brief. In actual fact, as a CMO, you're trying to solve a business issue, and the challenge is that quite often the agency solution that gets presented back may solve the brief. It delivers against what the brief's asking for, but it doesn't actually solve the business problem.
When you moved from agency side into the client side, how did you change the structure of your marketing department to help eliminate what you just described as the experience you have with agencies?
Taking that to market, I think the conversation that you have to have with marketeers now is how do you support them in this whirlwind of confusion and change? And providing a point of view. Now, you may have a point of view that might be sort of wrong or not appropriate for a particular client, but being clear about having a point of view. I mean, jokingly, for years, I used to train account management people to be chameleon. If the client says this, lean towards that way, because that'll make it easier for us to make friends with them and get money out of them. Rather than actually kind of going, no, listen, really sorry, but here's an argument and we're prepared to stand behind it.
So challenge them more.
That's more valuable to me as a marketeer.
Yeah, I think the best way an agency can look at itself is to think of itself as a coach and to think of a client as a team. And you can say, I want to be the world's best coach. I don't really care about the team. As long as people think that I'm the world's best coach. You go, no.
Yeah.
Get the team to win. People will think you're the world's best coach then.
Yeah.
That's the real disconnect here is anyone think anything of an agency if the client doesn't look good.
Yeah.
It's a simple formula.
Where are agencies excelling and where are they failing and what do you think they need to do differently?
If you just tell me that you're doing something well, I am never going to believe you, right? Because you're telling me. The only way to demonstrate that you're doing something well is to actually do it. When you go in, for instance, to a new business meeting, and when I think about the pipeline thing, demonstrate that you actually have researched the business and know something about it. So read the annual reports, go into the stores, read a bit of press about it, figure out how your point of difference, even in the not knowing anything about my business position, how that piece of information applies to my business. How can you use whatever your unique thing is to make my life different? As the CMO, I'm never interested particularly, in your process. I'm not interested in your agency culture and how you support your people. All these things are wonderful and I can admire them and all that sort of stuff. They make zero difference to whether or not you can sell my widget. And, it's sort of understanding how to demonstrate, the benefits. So the agencies that do well are the ones that somehow present a capability that is unique, that's not doing something that everybody else is doing, and then that can quickly show me how that might make a difference to me.
Put the power back in the client's hands and they say, I respect your problem, I'm here to try and solve it. Wow, it's big, isn't it? Now that I look at it, it's huge. I think those sorts of things are critical to the person who is in charge of marketing and their team honestly believing that the other people that you're dealing with get out of bed trying to help them.
So what new insights have you gained in the pitch process? If obviously you guys ran a number of pitches as you went client side to get that right fit. You'd probably see some things that were essential that needed to remain, but quite a lot of broken parts that needed changing. What would you share as your experience in that?
Please don't take 2 hours, but please try and do it in less than 30 minutes. And I think try and be as clear and as contextually relevant and passionate as you can be in that time. So I'm not looking, or I wasn't, looking to hire somebody who had solved the problem already. Don't come in and tell me that you've got, look, you've given us a brief or we think what your problem is here and here's the answer. Here's what we think is our point of view. I think in a pitch process, if there is one, try and use the time running up to whatever final beauty parade that a client makes you do to demonstrate that you've got a bunch of really smart people in your business. Because that's what I want. I want the smartest people I can get my hands on to help me and my team solve the problems that we've got. And I don't want you showing up with the answer because you don't know nearly enough. But I want you to demonstrate that you're a bunch of really, really smart people, and those smart people in your organisation are going to be dedicated as much as I can afford them to be into solving my problems and making me look good.
Pitching is torture. And I was under the misapprehension that being a client or being someone looking for a new agency during the pitch process would be fun. But it's torture as well. And I think the reason it's torture is when you're pitching, you see as your enemy the other agencies. Your enemy is actually the problem the client has. That's the thing you need to defeat. If you can, you will defeat the other agencies if you defeat the clients.
What do you think agencies can learn from the discipline of the client boardroom and the business world that they're not really paying attention to?
Be excellently prepared if you're going to be doing something, because if you're going to put it in front of a senior executive that maybe isn't the marketing director, they're going to ask a whole pile of questions that you haven't thought about. I think make it as brief as possible. So board presentations tend to be a pre-reading pack of a couple of pages, and then it's a one-slide, 20-minute presentation. That's all you get as the head of marketing in front of the board. And if you can't sell it in 20 minutes, you're done for another 3 months. Agencies need to understand that. And most importantly, try and make it as measurable and numeric as possible. Boards generally don't buy whether it's shot on a beach or whether it's shot in the desert. It doesn't matter to them. The idea is not important to them, it's the outcome that's important to them, and it's a dollar outcome. There's nothing else.
Learn what the numbers are that go with success. What does it look like? Work out what are the trends, what are the numbers that really matter, particularly profit. Really understand. People will talk about profit all the time, and I didn't know anything about it until I worked at Woolworths. But profit, and in big business, that word covers a lot of different numbers. But EBIT is, of course, the one you really need to know. If it's a big public company, work out what the EBIT of the company is, how fragile it is, what makes it go up and what makes it go down, and tailor your suggestions and the way you work to that knowledge. And suddenly they will look at you with completely new eyes. Because you've been written off, I can assure you, you've been written off as a bunch of people who would never get big people's grown-ups business like EBIT. A big company will get quite a shock when its agency says, we understand how much room you've got to move.
Yeah.
That's why we're making this suggestion.
And marketing is still embryonic in terms of its strength in the boardroom. In some organisations it has more power than in others, but ultimately marketing is seen as there's often a big space between marketing and sales. So building the connection between marketing and sales is the thing that the CMO needs to do in the boardroom in order to justify the investment. But the closer that marketing can get to what that end number is, or demonstrating cause and effect and so forth, and understanding what the CMO is actually dealing with in the boardroom. Nobody cares about the fluffy stuff. And but they do totally respect that hardcore, insight. And
What do you think is the biggest or the biggest threat the agencies have in the next 3 to 5 years?
I genuinely think the biggest threat is the agencies themselves and their unwillingness to necessarily adapt and change. The agencies need to be much, much more upfront about how that great piece of thinking translated into a measurable impact on the bottom line. Agencies, and whether it's the creative guys embracing a cause and effect conversation that is measurable, or whether it's the whole agency itself putting some skin in the game, I think the agencies have to understand that they've got to adapt. And I think genuinely, sitting now as a consultant, I think that's one of the things that consultants have an advantage of. They've got the opportunity of getting their hands around the business
yeah.
and then being able to influence from that point rather than not.
Yeah, it's business strategy, not comm strategy.
Correct.
If you could please thank our panel.